before I started recording, I did a little bit of tidying around to, get the clutter out of the way, and I came across a bag and a container of these little lovely Hexipuffs. These come from a pattern by Tiny Owl Knits, where you make hundreds, thousands of these little puffs, and then you join them together in an absolutely gorgeous blanket. But what I found amazing is, as I started picking them up, I started getting flashbacks of old projects and memories. Like this one was made out of leftovers from my first large shawl I ever made, and I remember making this one while sitting on an airplane. And yeah, so it's just a whole bag of little memories, all made using little leftovers, little bits that otherwise probably wouldn't have much use. And I don't think I'll ever make a blanket out of it, but I'll most likely put them together and make a cushion now that I've found them, because it's just one of those wonderful little memories. I'll include a link to the Tiny Owl Knits pattern. Do have a look. Some people have made some absolutely beautiful blankets. It truly is a feat of patience, because you knit in the round both sides, fill them up with puff, and at the end you join them all together. So it's certainly a long-term project, but I suppose blankets always are. So having jumped straight into things, I should say, welcome to episode 9 of Along the Lines, my crafty podcast. You lovely, wonderful people have blown me away. We're now already over 750 subscribers, so we've shot past the 500. And today I'll announce the winner of the Skein Queen Lustrous yarn and some other mini skeins and little bits that I've added into the parcel. So good luck to everyone. I'll pick the winner shortly. I think we've got about 116 last time I checked comments. So out of these 116 comments, I'll pick a few, and I'll also tell you a few of my favourite answers to the question of what you wanted to be when you grow up. And I'll give you my answer as well. In the next few days, I'll also show you how I made these dehydrated apples. It's autumn and we've got only 2 at the moment, 2 mature apple trees that give apples, with a few others that are still kind of little sticks, and I'm sure in a few years' time they'll give us some lovely apples. But even with 2 trees, I had more apples than I knew what to do with, so I dehydrated them and made some lovely snacks. So that's what I'm munching on today. So keep an eye on the videos in the next few days, and I'll be sure to show you how to do that. On the theme of apples, I had to show you this. It was a present from my lovely friend Kerry. It hadn't arrived in time for my birthday, so she gave it to me this weekend. So it's a little wooden apple that opens up and is perfect for storing stitch markers. And Kerry included these lovely little progress keepers and some other stitch markers, which I'm already using in the project. I'll show you in a second. So these lovely ones, and this very awesome little lightning bolt. So these tiny mini skeins, I'm tempted to even attach to earrings for a little bit of style. But I just love how much more stylish this is than usually I'm using mint tins, so this is rather lovelier. We looked into it and we think that it's mahogany, so really nice. They'll definitely stay in my craft room very carefully, away from, it won't be one of the ones that I travel with, that's for sure. It's too lovely. And in the theme of autumn, I decided that I wanted to make a cowl for my sister. In fact, I think I showed you I had started a warm hat for her, which I was also using as an opportunity to learn to knit continental. I hadn't quite thought about the fact that learning to knit in a different way is challenging on the hands. it's because it's not natural. My hands were really stiff, and I woke up the next morning feeling a little bit like I had RSI in my arms. And I decided that while I would finish the hat and I would make it for her, I had to take it a little bit slower, and I couldn't really do that on a deadline for a birthday or anything like that. So instead, I started a cowl for her, which is in fact not only identical in pattern to a cowl that I made for myself a few years back, but this is the twin skein, so it's the other skein of the exact same colour, in this luscious kind of dark red, and that means that we'll be cowl twins. So I'm about 2/3 of a repeat plus the edging along at the moment, and I'm hoping that I can finish it in the next week or so. The last one, I had a look at my Ravelry notes, took me about 10 days to make, so hopefully I can get this done fairly soon and have it ready to give to her at some point soon. So you may remember my ongoing spinning project, which was this yarn made of Shetland, blue-faced Leicester and silk noils of colour. Well, I now have 4 skeins completed, plus my original test ball. So I've got to measure them. I've got no idea how much I have now. That's almost everything. I still have a tiny bit on 2 of the bobbins, which should probably give me a little bit of extra, but the tricky thing when plying is that you start with your 3 bobbins, and unless you take great care and really plan carefully, the 3 bobbins probably won't finish at the same time. Even if you've used the same weight of fibre on each of the bobbins, you don't necessarily spin at exactly the same rate, exactly the same thickness on all 3, and sometimes you've got a little bit of waste where it gets a little bit clumped up and you decide to throw it out. So I ended up with 2 bobbins that had a fair amount more than the 3rd. So I need to take some off of one of the bobbins, put it on the 3rd one, and continue plying. So it'll be kind of my backup fibre, but I'm hoping that with these I'll have enough to make my dream sweater. It's a lovely fibre and it's plumped up really nicely, so after I'm now covered in fluff. After plying, you then give it a good wash, and the yarn goes from being 3 kind of very defined plies to puffing out into a nicely rounded yarn. So I'm quite happy. I think I've been fairly consistent between all the skeins, even though they were spun over a period of a year and a half. So really the test will be when I start swatching and knitting whether it's been that consistent. But I think it should be quite pleasant to make. So I'll keep you updated on progress with this. I suppose I should have told you what this cowl was, shouldn't I? So it's the Leaving Cowl by Maria Olsson, and it's quite a nice simple pattern. I'm using Skein Queen Desire, which is a DK weight, and as I said, I've made this before. So it's zooming along beautifully. It's quite a nice, easy to learn repeat. I'm using the charts, but it's also in written form, so it's really suitable for pretty much anyone who likes quite a nice, not overly chunky, but comfortable knit cowl. It's not a long cowl. It's kind of, you can't loop it around, but I've really enjoyed wearing it, and I think my sister will too. She works in an air-conditioned office, so it's comfortable and graceful enough that you can easily keep it on while working without looking like you're wearing all your winter knits at the office. Really lovely pattern. I'll put a link in the description. I love the colour that the designers used, which is kind of a golden mustardy colour. So I'm not usually one to make the same pattern over and over again, but I think this is one that I might have to make yet again. I don't know who's going to get one in that colour, but I just really have the urge to make it in a similar colour to what the designers made. I've grown a lot fonder of both the kind of warm yellows, mustardy yellows, and the kind of what they call grello, which is a green chartreuse kind of yellow. Still not very fond of bright kind of big bird yellow, but anything at the two extremes of kind of yellow turning to green or yellow turning to orange. I think they're just such lovely shades, and they're quite nice lively colours to use in autumn. Well, I suppose it fits the changing of the leaves and but it just has that warmth to it that I think I really like. So I think there's knits in those kinds of colours coming in my near future. And now, the moment you've all been waiting for, the giveaway. So I have, as promised, I will be sending the Skein Queen Lustrous, which is this absolutely beautiful sock weight, 50% merino, 50% silk in a vivid red. And I'm sending you a tiny mushroom. And I'm sending you 6 lovely mini skeins, 4 variegated and 2 semi-solids. Certainly I know the semi-solids are Skein Queen. The other 4 I'm not certain. I've had them for a little while, and they're lovely autumnal colours. As I was saying, a bit grello. I quite like this one. So you might want to join me in making a few Hexipuffs. And the winner, I used the random number generator, and it picked number 42, which is the meaning of life, and which is Annie Kelly. So Annie Kelly's answer to what did you want to be when you grow up was that when she was a kid, she wanted to be a teacher, and she still loves her stickers. So do I. I also wanted to share just a few of my absolute favourite answers. You're all brilliant. I really, really enjoyed reading what you wanted to become. One of my favourite ones has to be Fiona, who wanted to be a Eurovision Song Contest singer. Really, her dream was to represent Ireland singing an ABBA song or something very poppy. So, I think it's never too late. Though I'm not sure Eurovision, stick to YouTube. It's a lot more fun. You get to do what you want. So Madeleine Hansen and quite a few others wanted to be astronauts and explore space. We definitely had a few who wanted to be teachers. Oddly, we even had some who wanted to be accountants. Sue says she wanted to be a window dresser, which I think would be absolutely lovely. You'd get to decorate. Imagine being a window dresser for a yarn shop. The loop window in London, that would be wonderful, being able to set that up with loads of lovely, lovely stuff for people to see as they walk by. And I quite like Heather Keegan's post, which I think a lot of us as children can relate. She says, "When I was a little girl, I wanted to be a waitress in a restaurant because I always saw my parents leaving the tip on the table. When you're 6 or 7 years old, that looks like a lot of money." And finally, we've got quite a few who wanted to be writers or designers. And I think that's where our artistic streak really comes out. I think while some of us might not get to do it professionally, I don't, I think it's the kind of thing that we can all spend a little bit of time doing and enjoying. So why not? Never too old to start writing. So Annie Kelly, congratulations. These things are going to wing their way over to you. I'll drop you a line to get your address, and we'll see. There'll be more giveaways in the future. This is going to Annie, but better luck next time to everyone. So welcome to my greenhouse. I don't think I've brought you out here before, and I really haven't picked the best time of year because we're getting to the end of the season and lots of stuff is starting to die off. But I wanted to come and check, see what I had left in terms of lovely tomatoes that I could use for the homemade lasagna that we're going to make tomorrow. And I think we're looking pretty good in here. So over the summer I spent lots of time in the greenhouse and in the garden. But now it's the end of the year, so you need to make the most of what's left. And I think I might have to learn to make green tomato chutney at some point because I'm not sure that everything's going to ripen. But for now, I'm just enjoying the last few harvests of the season. Hopefully in the spring I can show you a little bit more. I'll plant some more chilies, some more tomatoes. I had these lovely little aubergines that were about the size of an egg, and lots of fresh herbs which are now sad and decrepit and end of season. But yeah, this is my little greenhouse. I should also show you my very awesome wellies. Alright, it's starting to rain, so I think we'll go back indoors. This is one of my favourite squishy, gartery travel projects where I only work on it when I'm travelling. As I said last week, where I was working on my trillion, sitting and waiting for Andrew to finish his flight, I think I love making the most of those little things, whether it's a little bit of time where you have that project that you carry with you, or little bits of promise like the mini skeins that allow you to make little tiny micro projects out of things that otherwise would be kind of cast aside as leftovers. And I read a quote a few days ago that really made me think about how to use those moments and use that time. And it's the kind of quote where usually I kind of roll my eyes. I'm not big on motivational speakers and things like that. But the quote was, "Whatever you're doing today, you're exchanging a day of your life for it, so make it worth it." And that's a quote from Peter Shankman, he's a public speaker, he's a writer. I think I originally probably discovered him at South by Southwest, which is a conference that I used to go to every year for about 6 years, I think I went, and it was a great way to meet a lot of tech people. It's how I found out about Twitter very originally, and it was an absolute hub of creative energy. And what Peter says is so true. So whatever you're doing today, think about how you're spending your time. Are you doing something that is taking you somewhere? Is it productive? Is it pleasant? Are you enjoying your life? I mean, you can take it however you want, from something as simple as, rather than watching an hour of TV, go do something that will lead somewhere, whether it's even just knitting something for one of your loved ones, or spending the time learning a new skill rather than just vegetating in front of the TV. Or it can be something as extreme as saying, well, actually, I hate my job. I quit. I'm going to go do something else. So it's certainly been on my mind over the past few days, just thinking, how can I make the most out of my spare time? How can I make the most of the things that are around me? And I think that's why I enjoy doing things like using the last apples that were on the tree that really I could have just let fall and they would have just rotted back into the ground. But instead I decided to make those lovely dehydrated apples that make a perfect snack and will allow them to last that little bit longer, or making projects out of those tiny little balls of leftover yarn. It's really, I enjoy making the most of little things, even reusing coffee sacks to redecorate or to make into useful things. So what's the most creative way you've ever used up either scraps of yarn or little leftovers of something that you've done and there's only, a small percentage left? What's the most creative way you've ever used those things? I'd be curious to hear your answers. And of course, you're waiting for my answer as well to the question I asked you for the giveaway, which is, what did you want to be when you grow up? When I was a kid, and I have such a vivid memory of this, I wanted to be a researcher. So not a journalist as such, but a researcher for the Canadian equivalent to the BBC. So here in the UK it's the BBC, in Canada it's the CBC, or more precisely in French it's La Société Radio-Canada. So my dream was to be a researcher for Radio-Canada, and when documentaries would be made and there was some background information needed on why certain things were happening and how they were happening, whether it was kind of newsy or or nature related, anything like that. That was my dream, to go and research those things. That was before the internet, back when you couldn't just rely on Wikipedia to find answers to everything. So that was my grand dream. I wanted to travel in order to research those things. And while that never happened, I certainly got to travel and to come and live somewhere else. And I spent 10 some years blogging regularly, where I did my own research for various articles I enjoyed writing. So I suppose that kind of passion for knowledge and for researching is still completely and utterly part of me. It's just I took a little bit of a different route instead. I'm quite happy with where I am. Oh, and if you've got suggestions on other things I can make now that I'm slightly puffed out with my Hexipuffs, I've got maybe 50, 60 puffs. So what would you make with them? Christmas decorations? Or a small bit of bunting? Who knows? You give me your suggestions. So we've reached the end of the episode. Thanks for hanging out with me. You can come and join us on the Ravelry group Along the Lines, and you can say hi on Twitter, where I'm Vero, and on Ravelry and Instagram, where I'm That Canadian Girl. And don't forget to subscribe, because I've got some lovely extra little videos coming for you in the next few weeks. Bye bye!